Hey there. Welcome to CyberPulse by Quantum Shield, the podcast where we make cybersecurity less intimidating and a lot more exciting. Every episode, we're diving into the latest digital drama, from sneaky hackers to the coolest defense strategies, all while sharing tips you can actually use. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's navigate this crazy digital world together.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Ready to geek out a little on cybersecurity?
Always ready.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into cybersecurity risk management. We've got a ton of interesting stuff to unpack, from the nitty-gritty processes to some really thought-provoking concepts.
Yeah, we're going beyond just the checklist today.
Exactly. We want to equip you with a solid understanding of how this all works, what to look out for, how to talk about it, and most importantly, how to actually apply it, no matter what your role is in an organization.
Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity risk management, it's about making informed decisions.
So let's start with the basics. Like, what exactly is the risk management process? It sounds kind of formal, right?
It does, but think of it less like a rigid rule book and more like a roadmap. It guides you through the steps.
Okay, so it's more of a continuous thing, not just a one-time thing.
Exactly. So you start by identifying potential risks, right? What could go wrong? Then you got to figure out how likely those things are to actually happen.
And how bad would it be if they did happen?
Right. Exactly. And that gets us to assessing the risks, because not all risks are created equal.
So true. A paper cut is very different from, like, a broken arm, even though they're both injuries.
Exactly. So you've got to figure out, for each risk, what's the potential impact? Is it just a minor inconvenience? Or could it seriously disrupt your business?
Or, like, destroy your entire company.
Yeah, worst case scenario. And once you've assessed those risks, then you can start figuring out, okay, what are we going to do about them?
So that's where the mitigation part comes in.
Exactly. And there are a few ways to go about it.
Yeah.
You can try to avoid the risk altogether.
Like, if you're worried about getting hacked, just unplug your computer, right?
Well, it's not always that simple. But you get the idea. Sometimes you can reduce the risk by putting security measures in place.
Strong passwords, two-factor authentication. Those are the big ones I always hear about.
Absolutely. And then there's transferring the risk, which is where things like cyber insurance come in.
Okay, that's a big one. A lot of companies are looking into cyber insurance these days.
For good reason. It can be a lifesaver if things go really wrong.
But I'm guessing it's not exactly a set it and forget it kind of solution.
Not at all. It can be tricky to figure out what's actually covered by a policy and what's not.
So you really need to do your homework on that one.
Definitely. And then, even if you have a good policy, things change constantly. New threats pop up all the time.
So you can't just rest on your laurels.
Nope. You got to stay vigilant. That's why continuous monitoring is so important.
Makes sense. You got to keep your eyes open and be ready to adapt.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. But there's another really important piece to this puzzle, and that's understanding your risk appetite and your risk tolerance.
Oh, yeah. These terms, I feel like they get thrown around a lot, but people don't always really get them.
Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of like with spicy food, right? Some people, they love it. They can handle the hottest peppers. That's their risk appetite. But then there's their tolerance. That's how much they can actually handle before they,
Before their mouth is on fire.
Exactly.
So how does that translate to cybersecurity?
Well, your risk appetite, in this context, it's about how much risk you're willing to accept in order to achieve your goals.
So a company that's really pushing boundaries, trying to be super innovative, they might have a higher risk appetite than, say, a company that's been around for 100 years and just wants to keep doing what they're doing.
Exactly. They're comfortable with a little more uncertainty, But then there's risk tolerance, and that's about where you draw the line.
So that's when it's like, okay, this risk is just too spicy, we can't handle it.
Yeah. It's about knowing your limits, knowing when to say no.
So how do you figure out what your risk appetite and tolerance should be?
That's a great question. It's a conversation that involves everyone from the top down. You have to consider your organization's goals, your resources, the industry you're in. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Definitely not. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to make sure everyone's on the same page.
It's like anything else in business, right? Communication is key.
Absolutely.
So, to wrap things up, let's bring it back to our listeners. Why should they care about all of this?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer, that's a great question. And how will our understanding of risk management need to evolve to meet those challenges?
It's something to think about. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into cybersecurity risk management. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for hanging out with us on CyberPulse. Remember, cybersecurity doesn't have to be scary. It's all about staying sharp and a little bit savvy. Keep learning, stay curious, and don't let those cyber gremlins get you down. Catch you next time, and until then, stay safe, stay smart, and keep crushing it online.